Hi everyone, and welcome to the More Money, More Freedom YouTube channel. In this video, we're going to be discussing the importance of having an emergency fund. Let's get started by defining the terms emergency fund. An emergency is a serious, unexpected, and often dangerous situation requiring immediate action. A fund is a sum of money saved or made available for a particular purpose. Therefore, the purpose of an emergency fund is to resolve or minimize any damage that the emergency caused when it comes to finances. So if an emergency occurs, you need money, you have the emergency fund there in place for you to resolve that situation. Where are you going to be saving this money? The goal is to keep it in a safe place where it is readily available. If an emergency happens, you don't want to have to be waiting 3, 4, 5 days to have access to the money. So you want to have it in like a bank, high yield savings account, or even just a checking account, whatever you're comfortable with. As long as it's readily available, it's not in the market to where it will fluctuate in value. 4 quick reasons on why someone will need an emergency fund. The first reason is so you don't get into any credit card debt, or for some of us, into any additional credit card debt. An emergency takes place, something happens, you need money. If you don't have an emergency fund, now you're forced to spend more, pay for that emergency with your credit card. On top of having to pay for that emergency, now you have more credit card debt, which is usually high interest rates, and that just makes things so much worse. The second reason why you need an emergency fund is so you don't have to tap into your long-term investments. A long-term investment is maybe your retirement plan, college savings for a child or for yourself. Maybe you're saving for a down payment for a home. If an emergency happens, you don't want to have to tap into those funds. Third reason why you should have an emergency fund is so you can sleep in peace. When you have an emergency fund and it is fully funded, there's a certain peace that comes knowing that if my transmission breaks, or if I have a flat tire, or if my computer dies, I don't have to get into credit card debt or tap into my long-term investments and mess all of that up in order to take care of this emergency. You know you have money set aside specifically for those reasons. Fourth and last reason that I want to talk today about why you should have an emergency fund in place is so you don't have to go to your parents, to your relatives and friends asking for money because some emergency occurred. Money has a way of messing with relationships. Everything can be going great, and then money comes into the picture. It's just not a good idea. Once you decide, okay, Ronald, I'm gonna have an emergency fund. How much should I put in there? Well, that depends. General rule is 3 to 6 months of expenses, not of your income, of your expenses. So what you wanna do is figure out how much you spend per month. Maybe take 6 months, figure out how much you're spending every month, average that out, and then decide whether you're going to do 3, 4, 5, 6 months of expenses. Now, why 3 to 6 months? For example, if you're a single person, you don't have any dependents, you're renting, 3 months should be more than enough. If an emergency happens, if you get laid off, car breaks down, whatever, 3 months should be enough to cover those costs. Now, if you have a home, if you have dependents, if you have kids, now more people are depending on you, so you want to have a larger cushion if something does happen, if something comes up. That way you don't run out of the money too quickly. Okay, maybe you're someone who's like, Ronald, I tried saving for an emergency fund. I even opened an account, started putting money in there. But what I found was that I make impulse purchases. New iPhone comes out, I just have to have that iPhone or the new laptop or whatever the case may be. It's not an emergency. I just have to have the new one. So I end up using that money, and then I never fully fund my emergency fund. I have a good intention of doing it, but I don't do it. One way to overcome this challenge would be to open up a spending fund. The way this would work out is you have your emergency fund, you have a spending fund. You decide, okay, Ronald, I'm gonna save $200 a month for my emergency fund until it gets fully funded. So you take $150, put it away into your emergency fund, and then take $50 or whatever you decide and put it into that spending fund. Then if you end up buying something that it's not an emergency, but you have these needs and you just need to have that new device or whatever the case may be, you have the spending fund where you can tap into that money and use that and not feel guilty about tapping into your emergency fund. To wrap things up, I wanted to share 2 quick stories of how an emergency fund has been very beneficial in my life. My wife and I, we traveled, we took a trip, and it was an expensive trip, and we ended up spending more than we had planned. Now, when we came back from the trip, we had the emergency fund and it was fully funded. So that really saved us because we weren't scrambling for money or trying to figure out how we're gonna pay our bills, anything like that. We just took some money out of the emergency fund. The second time it really helped us out even more so is when we purchased our first home. We started remodeling. Usually with remodels, you end up spending more than you budgeted for. That was our case as well. But again, we had our emergency fund. It was fully funded. We tapped into that, paid for the remodel, got everything done on time, just how we wanted to. So those are just 2 quick stories of how the emergency fund has really helped me out. Guys, with that said, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Click that like button. Thank you. And remember, more money, more freedom.